Welcome to the About podcast. Here we explore your financial health in simple and easy to understand ways.
Yes, welcome to the About podcast. This is Jeremy Scott, one of your hosts here, and of course, ably joined by Roy Hookie. Just us two today. I've been really enjoying this string of guests we've been having.
I'm working on some.
And I know you're working on more. I mean, it's fun just to be here, just the two of us. That's all right. But
I did one in the meantime without you.
You did.
When you were traveling, gallivanting around.
When I was gallivanting in other continents.
That's good.
So it was a good gallivanting. Well, and it was fun because we got to talk about it on our Making Memories.
That's right.
Investing memories, because we definitely invested in some memories. And yeah. But we're going to talk about something far together more exciting today than international travel or investing in memories or all the amazing other things we've talked about. We're going to talk about Roth IRAs.
That's right.
Which
so if you like to not pay taxes.
Yes, I like to not pay taxes. And my understanding is I myself am in prime Roth space. And so I do a little bit of that now. So I'm looking forward to learning about whether or not I'm doing the right thing when it comes to that. So first, I think we just need to know, this is obviously a conversation about investing. This is for those who maybe don't know, haven't run across the term for. We talk about Roth IRAs. Obviously, we're talking about retirement accounts and retirement investing. So this is within that world of what most people think of when they think of their investing is probably primarily retirement-based anyway. But we're in that world of retirement investing ideas.
Well, and we're going to take it a step deeper than even you maybe realize.
Oh, fantastic.
And we're talking Roth Conversions.
Roth Conversions.
But
good.
First step is understanding what a Roth IRA is.
Yeah, I think we can get that out of the way. It's pretty big.
Well, how
basic
about
but powerful.
You being the layman,
tell
me what a Roth IRA is.
All right. So my understanding is that the Roth IRA is one of the ways in which you can save money now for retirement later. And money that I would choose to contribute now in a Roth style, I would still pay taxes on. If I paid money in now, I'm not going to get a tax break now for putting that money away for retirement. But later, when I pull it out, there will be tax advantages to me. I won't have to then pay the taxes later. So it's kind of a pay now instead of pay later mentality, which is the opposite, as I understand it, of most other, kind of traditional retirement savings, where if I do a traditional retirement savings amount, I'm deducting that from my income. I'm not paying income taxes on it now, but I am going to pay income taxes on it later. That is my basic understanding.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The concept around the retirement savings accounts was that a tax deferred account, meaning I'm deferring the taxes, not paying it today, but I'm paying it in the future, was originally invented, I think it was in the 70s.
Really?
If I recall correctly. Yeah, it hasn't been around a long time.
Oh, okay.
But that's what we talk about, the traditional IRA, the traditional 401k concepts.
Right.
Okay. Because it really went from everyone used to have a pension.
Yes.
To now you're saving for your own retirement and you control the outcome.
Right.
A little bit more.
Right.
So that's kind of the shift that occurred, and that was roughly in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the concept was I'm gonna save on taxes today by not paying the tax bill, and maybe I'm in a higher tax bracket.
Right.
And I'm gonna defer it to the future, and hopefully be in a lower tax
bracket.
Right?
Okay.
So that was the original setup. Well, then in 1997, the Roth IRA was created.
Okay. There's also probably a little bit of incentive though too, right? I mean, if I can save money on my taxes now, there's a little more incentive to save. If I'm not used to being in the habit of saving, there's a little extra bonus, hey, look at this, you can save on your taxes too.
Yeah, without paying it. Without paying taxes on that money, so it can grow instead of being taxed.
Right. Same way we encourage people to take out mortgages by making mortgage interest deductible. When there's things the government wants us to do, sometimes they will use taxes to incentivize us to do it.
The problem that I have with people that have nice retirement accounts that are like that is they look at that retirement account as their money, and it is not, because a portion of that is taxed still in the future.
Right.
So I always have to remind people hey, I know it says this number, but that number is not what you're going to get.
Right.
So
Uncle Sam's still waiting out there.
Right.
Just waiting in the wings.
So the Roth IRA was created in 1997, and it just allowed you to put your money away, pay tax on it now. It grows tax deferred also.
Okay.
And if you pull it out through the qualified, the rules, just following the rules, you get to take it tax free.
Okay.
Okay. So there are rules behind these things, which we're not going to specifically talk about today.
Right.
But the concept of converting money from the original saved dollars, because I didn't have a Roth maybe when I first started saving as an option, because it was only 1997.
Right.
I want to maybe convert to a Roth instead of having saved through the Roth, if that makes sense. So now I have a chunk of money that's in my tax deferred account, IRA, traditional 401k.
Okay.
And I want to move some of that money from one account to the Roth account.
Easy enough, right?
Easy enough. Well, you have to save on taxes, you got to pay taxes, right? Which is really an oxymoron. But what's happening is this isn't right for everywhere. Just to be clear, this is only right for certain situations.
Right.
But it can make sense. So, the traditional 401k IRA concept, you could save and defer your taxes, but at a certain age, the government will tell you what you're required to take out. It's called a required minimum distribution, or RMD for short.
Right.
Well, right now, I'm setting the table for you because you don't have to do that. A normal working age person today, not retirees, I won't get into that intricacy, but normal working age, you can actually do it until age 75. You can defer it until age 75.
Oh, okay.
So I have some people that are retired and they don't need the money, so they're just, why don't we just let it continue to grow? I don't want to pay taxes on it until I have to.
Right. So if I'm in a situation, maybe I still have a part-time job, or maybe I've got other savings or the means of income. I own like a rental property. I don't know, whatever it is. So I can pay my bills. I don't need my retirement account. It's still invested. It's still making money. You know, why don't I wait until I need it? Like, no reason to take money for money's sake.
Yep. Now, you might think that the government is being really benevolent and loving on you because they're allowing you to do this at age 75, and you can wait that long, right? Well, the concept is this. They have pushed it to age 75 for a reason. I think it's twofold. You know what the life expectancy for a male in the United States is?
Slightly longer than 75, but not much.
It is 74.8 years for a male and 80.2 years for a female.
Nice.
That is per fast stats from the CDC.
Okay. That sounds about right. Yeah. Okay. So averaging out somewhere in that late 70s.
So they're already giving us this deferral period that I can defer to.
Right.
So, well, that seems like the logical thing to do. I don't want to pay taxes, but a couple things will happen here. I actually have notes today because this is so intense.
I noticed you brought notes. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's bullet points and charts and all kinds of things.
And I've got notes here.
Oh my gosh.
But the way that they've set it up is that as a joint filer,
okay,
married couple,
yeah,
your tax bracket is wider than if you're a single filer.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's let me give you an example. Today, I actually have 2024 in front of us. If you make, let me just read it out. So at the 10% rate, if you're single, you pay 10% from $0 to $11,600. If you're married, filing jointly, $0 to $23,200.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's quite a bit larger.
So you stay in that lower tax bracket. Lower tax bracket's longer.
Yep, nearly doubles when you're married filing jointly.
Right.
Okay, so you're deferring to past life expectancy for a male, and you pass away. Now what just happened? You're following me, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm following you now.
So now what happens is you pass away.
Yeah.
Your wife gets it, and as a spouse, they get it as it's like their own. We're not going to get into the details of that today either, but they get it like it's their own. It goes into their name
because it is an account. Like it's an account with my name on it or whoever's name on it, and then I pass, and the money doesn't like disappear into the ether or whatever. It's not use it or lose it. You know, it's passed to the next person in line
as a spouse,
which is going to be your spouse.
Name. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll talk about non-spouse here in a minute, but as a spouse, it moves into your name. Now you are a single filer. Okay. Now you deferred that money until age 75. Well, let's just say that at age 60, roughly, you had $600,000. You defer that and grows till you're 75, and I don't know, maybe you got a couple million there by that time, right? So that they have a calculation that determines what the required distribution amount is based off a December 31st value of the year prior.
Okay.
So I can't actually tell you exactly what that will be
Sure.
until we get to that point. But I can calculate it for you on an assumption. Okay. Well, what happens when you are in a tighter tax bracket? Well, your required distribution now is coming out.
Right.
And you have to pay now potentially taxes on your Social Security benefit that you didn't pay before.
Right.
Potentially, depending on the amount of money we're talking about, your Medicare premium could go up. A lot of people don't realize that.
Right, because it's tied to income.
And it's funny, it's called IRMA. If you fall into this situation where you have to pay increased Medicare, it's not a tax technically, it's an increased premium.
Oh.
But I think it's like a tax.
That sounds like a tax.
Well, one of my clients just hates IRMA. Every year she comes in, she complains about IRMA. But that's a potentiality. So not only are you paying a potential higher tax rate, okay, you're maybe getting even less money because now your Social Security is taxed and your Medicare premium could go higher.
Right. And the only thing that's changed, I mean, if you're 75 and you've been retired for a while, then your income is what it is. I mean, you've probably had it for a while, and if it's tied to retirement accounts or something that are inheritable, and so the waiting, if somebody passes away, one of the spouses passes away, right? The other one, nothing has necessarily even changed about that person's life. I mean, obviously, big things have changed because their spouse is gone, but their bills are probably largely the same, and their income is maybe largely the same or a little bit less, but their tax bracket has now changed dramatically. I think is where this is going.
Yep.
And so now when you have to take that distribution, you're going to be pushed into a higher tax bracket sooner than you would be if both spouses were still alive.
That's correct.
And conveniently, they wait until, statistically speaking, one of them's probably gone.
Yep. So,
wow.
Just setting the table here on why people want to look at this is maybe you could actually control the taxation more.
Okay.
Than allowing the system to play out the way it's written, right?
Because that's my question. It's like, okay, so how does a Roth conversion help? Is what I'm.
Well, so number one,
I get the problem.
Let's just make sure I'm crystal clear on the Roth conversion, right?
Yeah.
So your Roth conversion specifically allows you to convert money from your traditional tax deferred account, like an IRA or 401k, into a Roth account. Okay. So that just to be crystal clear on what that means. There's some nuances to that we'll talk through as well. But it's just simple as that. There's no limit on the amount of money you can convert.
Oh, like as opposed to new contributions. There's a limit to how much you can newly contribute to a retirement account every year.
That's right. Contributions have rules on limits on how much they'll let you save because they're not going to let you.
So that's why there's no limit on the conversion.
That's right. Because one, you have to pay your taxes on that, and they're happy to take your tax bill.
Yeah.
Right. So when you convert your money, this is the hard part for people is that let's just say that you converted $10,000 this year.
Right.
You have to now add $10,000 of income to your income tax for your household for that year.
Right. As if you'd made $10,000 somewhere. Yeah.
So either you have to pay the taxes from a personal bank account type situation, or you could potentially pay it from the converted assets, which I don't recommend, because let's just say you're at the 20% rate and you converted $10,000. Well, you take $2,000 out of the converted dollars,
right? And
now instead of converting $10,000, you converted $8,000 because you had to pay tax bill on the other piece.
Yeah, and I think that's important always to remind everybody, because I get messed with sometimes. Like if you say, okay, I've got $10,000 of extra income, and I got to pay taxes on it. You're not paying $10,000 in taxes. You're paying the taxes that you would pay as if you had made $10,000. So you're right. If you're in the 20% bracket, $2,000.
Yep.
So which is not nothing. No. I mean that's a significant chunk of change. Like I'm not gonna downplay it, but it's not like you're paying, like. You're not paying every penny of it.
That's right. So, so now we get to take that money, convert it over there, and then it's in there. There are some specifics to a Roth IRA as well, but let's just assume, for sake of argument, you already had a Roth.
Yeah.
I'm just simplifying things.
It's already had one. Converted it in there, and now that money can grow tax-free for life.
and the Roth does not have a required distribution age.
Oh.
Okay. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So that you can then potentially pay no taxes on that money ever again.
Right.
Or have it go to your loved ones.
Right.
And they don't have to pay taxes on it either.
Now, am I paying with the Roth no taxes on the dollars I put in, or the dollars I put in, and with those dollars earn?
So the dollars you put in, no matter the situation, whether it's a direct contribution or a conversion, you have paid the taxes.
Okay, so don't ever have to pay taxes on that again.
Always talking about, you never have to pay taxes on money you've already been taxed.
Okay.
All we're talking about is the growth.
Right. Okay.
So that's another thing that people need to pay attention to when they do this stuff, is that the Roth should really have more of the aggressive growth of your portfolio than your traditional accounts.
Okay.
Because they get, I want my tax-free money to grow more than my tax-deferred money.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So I'll have some clients where we'll put their growth stocks in the Roth, and then we'll have their bonds or their lower risk investments in their traditional accounts, because at the end of the day, they're the same risk, but we're being efficient on how the taxation of that money happens as it grows over time.
Right. Okay.
All right. That's a little bit off topic in regards to where we're going with it, but I just want to make sure I set the table a little bit on that. Now,
okay.
The other piece of the spouse, okay, so the husband passed away, the spouse inherited it. It's in her name now.
Right.
Her life expectancy is age 80.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they're the same age, and she's got 5 more years roughly, right, just to meet life expectancy.
Right.
What happens when she passes away?
And there's still money left.
So what will happen is it'll go to I should be clear, if it's a human being and it is a non-spouse, the rules are today that you have to take the money out within 10 years.
Oh.
Now, again, think about it as if you're 75 or 80, how old are your children?
Not retirement age.
Roughly 20, 25 years younger. Right-ish.
Early 50s.
Okay. What tax bracket is an early 50-year-old person in?
Probably a good bit higher.
Pretty bit higher, right? Way higher than your 20s.
Yeah, way higher than your 20s. If you're doing life at all right, so you're probably doing the best you've done so far when you're in your mid-50s.
So not only have they made it so that the spouse had to take it as a single filer, but now if the spouse passes away, the children are probably going to be in a much higher tax bracket,
right?
If they're still working, just because of life, and you make more money over time. And they have to take it out over 10 years. So now most of my children that have inherited money like that take out 1/10 a year.
Yeah.
Because it makes more sense. Now, there is some planning that can go into that if there's weird situations going on for them, but that's income to them.
Right.
That just went on the very top at the highest rate that person has probably paid in their lifetime.
Right.
So...
And all of this is, it's somewhat understandable why this is. The government really doesn't want you squirreling away money that you never pay taxes on, right? They want to make sure they eventually get their piece. So that's, why it's structured the way that it is. But unfortunately, they're taking their piece in the situation you just offered at, one of the most advantageous times for them.
Well, it's it's like going gambling. The house is going to win.
Right. Oh,
it's designed for the house. Now, this is the game we play, though, right? With taxation.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to control that taxation. Yes. So why wouldn't we maybe, if we had a more favorable period of our life where we had lower tax rate, consider the Roth the Roth conversion as a potential option?
Right.
It doesn't have to be all of it. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be a ridiculous thing, but if you have the ability to convert money in the 12% tax bracket, that probably makes pretty good sense.
Right.
So the idea is basically, if you look at it and say, all right, there's a predictable thing in wherein either, the surviving spouse or eventually the inheriting children, our chances are going to be in one of the least advantageous places as far as saving money on taxes as they're going to be. And so if I can recognize, well, wait a minute, right now I'm, say, 70, my partner's still with me, we are paying probably the lowest effective tax rate we're going to pay, that would seem like that's the moment to think about something like the Roth conversion.
Yep.
Is that where this is heading? So this is still not something you want to do. You want to do while everyone's still alive, basically.
Well, it's something you don't take lightly, right? You don't
Right.
just do it to do it. You do it if it makes sense for your situation.
Yeah.
And if you can control the tax rate, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because even if you're not even thinking about the kids or the heirs, let's say you don't have any. Okay, but still think about the surviving spouse.
Right.
Right? Because even if you converted, let's say, half of your money, well, now that surviving spouse has a much smaller required distribution amount.
Right.
And she has a nice chunk of tax-free dollars to complement anything that they might be doing in their life. I'm
Right.
saying she, but
Yeah.
it could be he, right?
Them.
Them.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let me give this to you maybe in a way that'll be more shocking for you.
I don't know. I'm feeling pretty. I'm not shocked, but I am. I was like, it's no surprise to me that this is how it works, Roy, because it's
So
the government. But it's sometimes I'm like,
so
oh my
I
gosh.
have being for my listeners, I am a former math teacher.
Yes.
So I do geek out on numbers. So joint filer taking a $20,000 distribution and has $50,000 of income will pay 12% or $2,400 on that distribution. Joint filers.
So joint filer is going to pay $2,400 basically in tax in order to do the conversion of how many dollars?
Nope.
Oh.
I'm just talking
just
about
distribution.
taxes. I'm
Okay.
just talking about taxes. So if they took a distribution, right, taking the money out, I'm going to spend it on whatever I want to spend
Right.
it on.
We're going Hawaii.
Okay. So to give you the same scenario, now we have a single filer taking a $20,000 distribution and has a $50,000 income. They're going to pay 22% in taxes or $4,400 on that $20,000 distribution.
Dang. That's a big
So it's
screen
not quite
TV
double.
difference.
Not quite double.
Yeah.
And again, there's a possible taxation of your Social Security benefits.
Right.
And then there is a certain point where Medicare premiums do get hit as well. Not in that specific scenario, but that will happen eventually. Well, let me give you some more perspective here. So now let's say that trying to keep the same numbers, a child is inheriting a tax deferred account and I can do the reverse calculation on that to figure out about how much $20,000 distribution would be. But it's approximately $500,000 at age 75. Okay. So that person left their kid $500,000. Now their rules, if you recall, how do they have to take that out?
Over 10 years.
10 years. So we take out 1/10 a year. And let's say there's no growth for the sake of argument, which is
No growth. The market is terrible. It's 0%.
This is flat. And you had to take out $50,000 a year approximately.
Yeah.
Okay. So I looked at the U.S. Census Bureau's average salary in Colorado.
Okay.
For 46 to 64-year-olds.
Makes sense. We're sitting in Colorado.
It's roughly $89,000.
Okay.
Okay. So if you had two people working the average job in Colorado, for the sake of argument, that's about $238,000 in income. Okay. You with me so far?
Yeah. Including the 50.
No, it's not including the 50.
Oh, okay.
Hold on. Let me make sure I did that right. Yes, it is including the 50.
I was going to say, I was an engineer. I can do math in my head. Right?
Well, those engineers are a little bit more attention to detail.
Yeah.
So $238,000 in total income.
Total income.
Okay. Actually, I have it written right here. $178,000 in income plus the 50 is $238,000. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're going to pay 22% on the $23,000 of that 50.
All right.
And then you're going to pay 24% on the other $27,000 because of the tax brackets.
Right. Okay, because you're going to straddle a bracket.
Yep.
Okay.
So in total taxes on that, you'd pay $11,520 per year or $115,000 over 10 years.
Wow.
Now, that's if everything kind of stayed the same. I'm just trying to give an example.
Yeah,
right?
but that's break it down.
Now, if you're a single filer because you're not married and you inherited that money and you're earning the average $89,000, we add the 50 on there to $139,000. You're going to pay 22% on $11,000 and 24% on $39,000. So in total, they'll pay $11,560 in taxes per year, $115,600 over 10 years, which isn't actually that drastic. But if you're a higher earner, if you're making $200,000 a year, it just gets way worse.
Right. Could just keep pushing further and further up the ladder.
I'm just trying to give you at least some sort of baseline here, right? So, I did actually recently run a conversion for a client. I told him I'd be doing this podcast. So hi, if you're out there listening.
Hi, Roy's nameless client.
So if you had a client that did a conversion over a 10-year period on roughly I think it was $500,000, almost $600,000.
Right.
They'd pay roughly $370,000 in lifetime taxes from all sources.
All sources.
All
Okay.
sources. So not just on the conversion, but for the rest of their life to age 90, they converted to over 10 years their money. They paid $370,000 over the rest of their lifetime.
Right.
So roughly a 30-year period.
Okay.
Okay. They're roughly
Okay.
60 years.
So that's the total tax bill
Yep.
expected for that amount of time.
Right. So that's if they did a conversion over the first 10 years, let's say age 60 to 70.
Okay.
And that's the specific analysis we're looking. There's 61. Okay. So if they did not do a conversion at all, and they just said, let's defer. I don't want to pay taxes early. Let's just
Right.
defer.
So the traditional scenario most people will do.
They'll pay, and this does not even include the heirs, but they specifically will pay $673,000 in lifetime household taxes
What?
from all sources. Again, to be all clear.
Yeah.
I wanted to give the full picture on that. So why would I consider the
Wow.
conversion, right? It's a big difference
Right.
when you're actually looking at the numbers and controlling that I'm converting that over 10 years.
Right.
Maybe it's at a 12% tax rate.
Right.
Well, that's actually not that bad of a rate.
No.
If it's below 20, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing that we can lose sight of is, and I think you pointed out earlier, we can look at like that. I know I'm guilty of this. You look at that bottom line number. I've got the X number of dollars in the bank, but then that reminder of like, well, except all that money's not yours, right? Like some of that's yours. Some of that you're holding on to for the government. And because these things are happening, over 30 years, the example you just gave, I mean, with that, $250,000 difference, even over 30 years, I mean, you're going to feel that.
$300,000.
$300,000 over 30 years, $10,000 extra a year. I mean, you're going to feel it, and it's not going to feel great, but still, I mean, you think about $300,000. I mean, I don't know. This is why we need to do work like this, and we need people like you, Roy, to do these analyses for us because, a lot of stuff sounds great, but until you actually run the numbers out and think about like, how this is all going to play out, how this can all play out, where it all adds up to is because there's so many factors involved in everything. I mean, again, this is why we're professional. Because, I mean, anytime you can save me $300,000, whether it's over 1 year or 30 years, Roy, you feel free to do that. I would love you for it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Man, I didn't expect the numbers to get that big, honestly.
It's pretty crazy.
Truthfully, that's that legitimately a surprise.
Yep. So when you're looking at a conversion, you have to bring in your professionals. Your financial planner obviously should be someone who's kind of driving that. I look at myself as the quarterback for people's teams, but I'm only dangerous with taxes. I'm not a tax expert. So
Right.
I always recommend people run this by their tax professional and say, hey, does this make sense? Just as a reminder to our listeners, tax professionals are really looking at the current year. Right. They know the tax laws for the current year. They can look at what you did for the current year. We can do a little bit of planning to see where we're going to be at. But they're looking at the current year. I'm actually taking them out of their comfort zone and trying to show them a long-term arc that there's variables that are technically assumed and unknown.
Right.
But we can only go off of what we know today. So we always bring those people in that conversation because then they can at least look at the numbers from an independent way, a different way, by the way.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And just make sure that makes sense. And we're not going to run into something that maybe I didn't know about that they already know about. Right. In your tax situation.
Right.
So
Right.
I always do that for my clients just to make sure. The question always comes down to, Roy, why would I pay taxes today if I don't have to?
Right.
So you have to really get through that. It's a mind shift.
Right.
It's not about the taxes today. It's about the taxes over your lifetime.
Right. Well, it's not. I mean, it is. It's about paying taxes today, but it's about paying taxes today to save taxes later. Exactly. And within the context of this conversation of retirement savings in the first place, hopefully you're already in that like savings mindset anyway. I mean, that whole concept of savings is like, I have plenty of things I could spend the money that's going into my retirement account on now.
right? I got 4 kids living in my house right now. Like I got plenty of things I can spend money on. But don't, I make sure some of it, is going, into that savings for the future. And, so this feels like the kind of, in my mind, it's in the similar vein, right? Like, because I'm basically, when you're saving, you're kind of doing the same thing. But I'm like, okay, if I can pay a little bit of tax now, or less tax now to save myself tax later, why would you not do that? And the fact that what I think I really like about this one, as a strategy is, say something unforeseen and very unfortunate happens, you're also saving your inheritors, right? It's not one of those things like, well, if I live to be 90 and blah, 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 because that's the other mindset you can get into. You're like, well, I'm not going to live that long. So, how much do I really need to save or whatever? But this, since it also not only benefits, you, future you, and future your spouse, it also, but whoever's in line next after them as well, there's savings for them there as well, which I think for me makes it a little easier to even think about doing it more so. Because I run into sometimes every once in a while, I'm just like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to be, around that long.
Our mortality sometimes gets
how
us,
far
right?
do I really have to worry? I mean, I'm hopefully sitting on a cloud playing a harp by then. So that really kind of feels like one. How long? I mean, is the ability to do a Roth? I know Roths came out. You said in 1997. Is the ability to do the Roth conversion relatively new, or has that been in there from the beginning? Because I've not heard of this before.
I didn't research that, so I don't know exactly off the top of my head.
Okay, because I mean, I've heard of the Roth before. I mean, that's been kind of in the water as long as I've been saving, and it was kind of, and there was, what I always heard was like, oh, you're young, you should be in a Roth. And I'm not sure when I stopped being young as far as that's concerned, but that's all I ever heard about it was, oh, you're young, you should be doing this.
I got into the business in 2009, and I remember specifically Roth Conversions be available back then.
Okay. So it's not even a new thing. It's just, but you have to, there's some nuances to it. You got to do some work the way you did to really figure out, like, does this make sense? It's not like an automatic best practice for everybody, but it's definitely ask your financial planner.
Yeah. And there's strategy to anything, right? So if you have a down market, it's actually a fantastic time to do a Roth conversion because you can convert more. Think of it as shares, right? You own shares of something. Well, if it's down in value, I can convert more of those shares so that when it rebounds, I have it in a different bucket that's tax-free instead of tax-deferred.
Right. Because it's coming back up.
Right. So that's something to think about. Also, when don't you want to do a Roth conversion is also an important question to ask, right? So I have a lot of clients that are charitably inclined, and they're leaving their estate to charity.
Oh.
Well, it still might make sense depending on their life situation on the day-to-day, but they might still want to have a portion of their assets be tax-deferred like a traditional 401k or IRA.
Right.
Because then that money can go to a charity, no taxes due.
Right.
So I don't want to pay taxes on it. They don't have to pay taxes on it. They actually get more money.
Right.
So there's just lots to it. It's not simple. It's not for everybody.
Right.
But the planning piece of that is what you really need to take into account and just see if it makes sense for your specific situation or not.
Got it. That makes sense.
It actually comes down to as well, people your age and my age and younger, well, should I even be saving in a Roth IRA or should I be saving in a traditional IRA? It's the same concept in regards to, well, what's your tax rate?
That sounds like a future podcast episode, right?
It very well could be.
Yeah, I will be taking notes on that one because I'm every year when I fill out my form again, I'm like, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
that's not true. I talk to you. You tell me what to do. I'm lying. Well, he's got me well squared away.
So why would someone want to pay taxes today instead of waiting? I got a few things here.
Yeah.
Number one, you're beating them at their own game.
Right.
So they've made the game. You're playing within the rules, and you're winning.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of paying 20+% like a single person would, like I did in that example, we're paying the 12% like a joint person would. Well, that makes perfect sense. Your tax bracket overall is going to be a big piece of that consideration, and you have control now.
Right.
And in the future, you do not.
Right.
So that's another reason. And these are just examples I actually talked about. I got out of track on regards to how I shared my information today.
Oh, man.
So ultimately, that's what we want to consider in your situation is how are we going to do this? Does it make sense? is a tax man getting more or less?
Right. And it is. I mean, and it is in some regards a game, and it's a game with rules that we didn't make up. Right. And this is one of those places where it's there. It is not cheating. It is within the life of the rules. I think the assumption is most people are not interested, inclined, or have access, or will take the time to get access to professionals who can help them understand what the options are. But there's always been, the person who knows the rules the best wins.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, and I can't possibly know them all. And I'm not, you definitely know a lot more than I do. And I'm sure you don't even know them all either. That's why occasionally we need to talk to tax professionals as well. But you're darn sight better prepared to win for me than I am on my own.
Well, and as you being a pastor, I think it's quite seemly to say, there's two things guaranteed in life, which are what?
Death and taxes.
So you got one covered, I got the other
there
covered.
There you go.
Let's
and
be smart about how we do this.
And I've said before, I don't mind paying my fair share, but I don't need to pay more than it. I mean, because I like our country and I like our roads and I like the fact that we're safe and secure as much as we are, and I like all those sorts of things. And so, that comes with a bill, sure. So I would never do anything unseemly.
I've never met anybody that wanted to pay more.
No, I think and I don't know the people. I mean, we'd all like to pay less, but I'd like us all to pay less, right? Like I think most people are willing to pay their fair share, but it needs to be fair.
Well, and that's what I'm giving people.
If you've made rules and abilities for people to take advantage of, then
that's just it.
It should be as widely available as possible.
I'm giving people the opportunity to educate themselves to see if it makes sense for them. And if it does, we can try and win that game. And if it doesn't, we're still going to win because your situation means it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we're still probably the best tax situation we can be in.
Yeah. Because if it doesn't work for you, you're probably one of those higher end tax brackets and you're probably doing okay anyway. So for however you want to define okay. So
that's exactly the case.
Wow.
So to save on taxes, you got to pay taxes.
Wow.
And if we have control of that, that's where we win.
Man. I gotta tell you, this was remarkable. When you text and says what we're doing, I'm like, no, okay. But this
I could tell you were excited.
Remarkably interesting, and like I said, some pretty surprising numbers in there. But it doesn't surprise me, especially when it comes to things like both taxes and investing, that the numbers add up quick.
Well, and I gotta say, because I'm a horrible self-promoter, but if someone out there does have questions on this, they want to talk more, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll take a look and see if it makes sense.
Yeah. Call Roy, call your financial planner, whoever it is. Talk to somebody. I don't know if this was something that I would want to tackle on my own necessarily. I suppose everything's possible, but definitely why you work with people who know.
Yep, that's exactly the case.
All right. Well, this was certainly about something interesting and surprising. Lots of twists and turns in this one, Roy. I really appreciate you bringing this to us.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. This is always fun. It's good times. So, all right. Well, on the counter to it, intuitive note and a statement that sometimes you got to pay taxes to save money on taxes. I really appreciate you bringing this down, and this was great. So thank you all for joining us on the About podcast. Look for new episodes soon on upcoming, no doubt, both very interesting, but maybe not interesting on the surface seeming.
Well, if anybody has any ideas, definitely let us know.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.